All right, 20 years of marriage coming up here in just a few days. That's a really long time.
I can't believe
to
it.
be stuck you with me.
That's not true.
It has been a journey.
It's been a journey. Yep.
So as we come upon 20 years, we've always prioritized, at least for a lot of our marriage, kind of going back and thinking about our marriage and how it's changed and how it's grown and what God's done in our relationship, which is to say a lot. And I think that's really important to go back and think about that. And, also think about that in the context of having been married 20 years and what our relationship looks like, Lord willing, in the next 20 or 40 years. So this today and next week, that's what we're going to do. We're going to take a look back at our marriage and reflect on the decisions we made and the plan God led us on partway through and that brought us to now.
Yeah, let's get into that.
Before we jump into today's show, I wanted to ask you to check out our website, brand new website, marriagebydesignpodcast.com. That's marriagebydesignpodcast.com. All of our episodes are available there on that website. Love to have you pop over there, follow us there, and check it out.
If you have a topic that you're wanting more information on or you have questions about, you can search on our website by topic, which is a really great feature.
That's right. And more than anything, guys, please share this with someone that would find it meaningful for them. Without any more delay, let's get to the show. Hey, everybody. I'm Nathan Warnock.
I'm Andrea Warnock, and you've joined us for the Marriage by Design podcast, a time where we talk to you about God's design for marriage, what the Bible has to say about that, and how we live that out practically. And today we're talking about our first
10 or so.
10 years-ish?
Sure.
Yeah.
Let's call it that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of the numbers. Yeah.
Sure.
Like, we're talking about the kind of some dating, engaged, and then up till about 2012.
Yeah, and a little after. I mean, our relationship divides pretty well into 10 and 10 at this point, if you include trying to deal with the fallout of the first 8 years of our marriage, which obviously bled over a couple of years into it. So that's kind of as I've been reflecting on our marriage in preparation for our 20th anniversary, our relationship kind of does divide pretty evenly.
I will say there is now more years, more time on the positive end of things, the latter end, and that's true. I was thinking about that recently, about what a blessing that has been to have more years of a marriage that's been directed by the Lord than the first half.
Right.
And now I feel like that's a big deal for me.
Right. So on this podcast, if you followed us along at all, you know the story of our first few years. And obviously we're going to talk a little bit about that. But we did like 3 45-minute we've talked about that a lot.
There's a lot of
on this channel. And so while we are going to talk...
A lot of drama. You can go back and listen to it.
Yeah. So my point in saying that is not to say we're going to skip that. That's what we're talking about today. But is to say we probably, for the sake of this not being a 2.5-hour episode, we're not going to go in the blow by blow. And certainly if you want to know, all the gritty details of how bad it was those first years, certainly you can find that on our channel. We're not hiding from it at all.
And we had way back in the day talked about that in not to just say, oh, here's all the details for you to know, but to relate to the people to people who are going through the same things or struggling with similar things, like to let them know you're not the only one. And in marriage, whatever you're struggling with, you are not the only one.
Yeah, that's
by
right.
a long shot.
Yeah,
and so our hope in detailing that way back when was for people to not feel alone,
right,
and to be very transparent as well. But we don't really find, now that it's out there, like we don't need to belabor those
Sure.
details.
Yeah, I think that's my big impressions from our first dating and our first 10 years is like my three impressions would be prepared, hope in the Lord, and lay the foundation for your marriage is not about you. Those would be the three. If I were talking to a young couple, and we do talk to young couples a lot, those are my kind of big impressions, right? The be prepared is really, hopefully, more of a dating thing. Hope is just, that's something we all need in life in general, but in marriage in particular, because marriage is one of those relationships where when things are bad, you feel like it's going to be bad forever.
Yeah.
And when things are good, you think they're going to be good forever. And so you don't take the time in the good times to sit down as a couple and ponder about the times in your marriage when it hasn't been so good. And when things are bad, it's really hard to just fight that wanting to give up in whatever way that looks like, right? Obviously divorce being the extreme, but there's tons of ways you can give up while staying married.
Divorce, yeah.
And that's, I went down some of those roads too. And then start training yourself to realize your marriage isn't about you. This is something that we will spend our whole lives reminding ourselves, but we lay the groundwork for that early in our marriage, or we should. We don't always. We didn't. And we really had to deal with the fallout of that, which is why I want better for others. So, babe, what are your impressions? And you can sort of recount the broad details that tie into those. You know, I guess broad strokes. We dated for about a year and a half. We had known each other, just run in some similar circles for years and years and years, off and on, before we started dating.
We dated for 6 months.
Started dated for 6 months. Were engaged for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then got married 2005. It's 2025
very end of
now.
2005. Yep.
And I wouldn't say we took our dating relationship particularly seriously, although I would say we took it
as seriously as we knew how.
American United States dating serious.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like a series of one night stands or anything crazy like that. We were formally dating and we went on dates.
We relied on our own suppositions of what serious dating looks like, right? And engagement too, you know?
Yeah, we just didn't, there wasn't really any,
weren't surrounding
there wasn't really any
ourselves
intentionality of like, okay, what are we building here?
Right.
You know, I think I thought of dating the way probably a lot of people think of dating, like you're evaluating another person to see if you want to ask them to marry you. And of course, even in that impression of dating, and I would say that is a lot of the way that even Christians look at dating. It's it is an interview process for marriage. Of course, interviews in and of themselves are very me focused. When you interview someone, you're asking the question, do I want this person to work for me? If you turn dating into that, you know, you're sort of going, okay, is this person,
do I want this person
is
to work
this
for me?
person who, no, is this person who I want to spend the rest of my life with? Which is a crazy question because, of course, even by dating them, you're changing them. And wait until you get married, then you're going to change them a whole bunch. And that's not their fault. That's your fault.
Change them,
and the Lord's going to change them, and they're going to change them, and their job's going to change them, and your kids are going to change them, and your life circumstance. I mean, everything changes all the time in life. So the question in dating that we never asked, really, is, am I willing to sacrifice my own life for this person?
Yeah, and it is a good thing, of course, to enjoy spending time around that person and to like them and all of that, get along. But you're going to have periods where you don't like them, you don't get along, you don't enjoy being around them, you know. And so does this person have the character of somebody that I want to be married to? important. And we never really thought about that.
Yeah, and I just and we've talked about this in
not just the personality, but the character.
Right. We've talked about this in our dating episode. I just don't know how high on God's, like, if God were sitting down with me and going, okay, you've been dating this girl, you're thinking about marrying them. I'm not even sure he would ever ask, do you like spending time with them?
I don't know.
I mean,
Maybe.
let's just recognize for, let's call it 10,000 years of human history, that question has been asked for about 1,000 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and God did, I mean, when God designed marriage for a really long time, it was arranged.
Right.
And so my point in that is not to say arranged marriage is the way we ought to do it. I don't believe that. It's to say we get dating backwards in the West, I believe, because that is the primary question we're asking. Like, okay, well, do you like being around this person? Do you guys have fun together? I mean, that's good. But of course, when we think of the implication in that, right? Well, yeah, I do. But what about someday if I don't?
Sure.
The implication of that question then is, well, then it's not working anymore.
So do you feel like you had like a moment where you knew you wanted to marry me? Or like
I think
a time?
I think I had just
evolved into that?
quickly. I mean, yeah, I think, you and I had some really long periods of just talking early on. That was a real benefit of our dating relationship because I wasn't walking in my faith, and so there were plenty of opposite sex relationships that I got into, like, on the physical side first. Mm-hmm. And man, that if there's any caution I would give to a young dating couple, it's don't do that.
Right.
Because it totally puts blinders on with regards to glaring issues that you might otherwise recognize. And so for you and I, that just wasn't like a thing that we jumped into right away. And I'm not talking just about sex. I'm talking about just about physical, kissing and caressing and like all the just physical sides of it that sort of align your emotions. And so you and I had a lot of pretty deep conversations pretty early on, and I think that indicated to me kind of who you were and what you were about, and that was really attractive to me. I don't know that I remember like a moment where I was like, hey, you did this.
Yeah,
and
sure.
That was when I knew.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a month into dating, though, and we were talking about getting married, which is crazy because I was never that person. Like, dating for me had been just something fun to do.
Right.
And but we started talking about marriage pretty early on.
Oh, yeah.
And now looking back, I'm like, why? Just because we liked our long discussions and we enjoyed being together, and it just felt like, wow, I get along with this person and enjoy this person more than any other, and so I guess marriage is just the next step.
Yeah, and I'm pretty convinced there was a lot of God stuff working in the backgrounds.
Sure.
I mean, there's been so much of our marriage that we'll get into next week that always makes me wonder, like, because we did some really dumb, even stuff for you and I that was dumb, like dating. I mean, I think, I don't even know how, not that long after we were dating, I don't even know if we were engaged yet, we had gotten like a joint bank account.
This was like a month into dating.
Yeah, we weren't living. We didn't have much money. I mean, we were kids at the. I mean, just not we weren't kids, but we were
20.
We were 20 at the time, 19 maybe at that point.
No, we were 20.
20.
No,
and so that's obviously is dumb, and I would never recommend that to a dating couple. I mean, that's just silly. But also,
and we had never done that. Like,
even for you and I think that's still, like, it's not that we were like, that's how we were predisposed. Like, we would have never done that before when we were together. So there were some things where I'm like, God, there was some stuff we did that was so atypical
for even the two of us,
for me and for you, that it felt like there was a little bit of God bringing some things together that He had a plan for.
Right.
And honestly,
and that helped carry me through in the really horrible times. Like, man, it just felt like, looking back, to be able to look back and say, yeah, but it felt like God's hand was in this in certain moments, like undeniably, you know? And so that was definitely helpful when we were in the thick of despair.
Yeah, and I have a marriage by design article in my head that I want to get on the list, like where the title is "Our Marriage Was Arranged by God," because there are a number of times when I look back as the people we were, not now, but as the people we were, and think it's God's design we didn't date very long, because I don't think we would have stayed together if we had dated 3 or 4
Yeah,
years.
because we started falling apart pretty quickly after we got engaged.
That's what I mean. Like there was so much selfishness and self-focusedness that had we not gotten swept up in the, so we've known each other since 3rd grade. There's a lot of fairy tale-ness around our relationship. Our families ran in the same circles, same church background. Like there's a lot of where it's like,
of our lives have been lived together.
This is such a cool story that I think for me, I got caught up some in the story of it and didn't ask some obvious questions I should have asked about who you were at the time. And also that I never asked about who I was at the time. And honestly, I think maybe that same kind of story and fairy tale part of it tricked some people in our lives to not ask some of those questions that they would have asked if I was just some guy that had moved here from Texas and now I lived here. And it caused us meaning our whole community, and in particular Andrea and I, to not, I don't think, really consider red flags.
Not our whole community. There were some people.
Yeah, a few.
Yep.
Who
said some things. But anyway, yeah. We can look back and say, like, we did some really bizarre things that feels like it was the Lord just kind of forcing this through.
Yeah, and I think that's actually really important, because I know you and I don't necessarily agree about the how God looks at dating, and that's perfectly fine. You're even Andrea is not perfect.
That's true.
I'm kidding. But my point in saying that episode is you can have a wreck of a dating, meaning no intentionality. You're just, hanging out at Applebee's. And you can have an unintentional engagement. You can bumble into marriage with really no idea of what you're getting yourselves into, which is how we were. And you can still have a marriage that honors God, and because it honors God, brings flourishing into your life.
Yeah, and you don't even have to have a big, moments of despair and sin and all of that like we did.
Right.
We know a young couple who their dating and engagement was as intentional as they thought it could have been at the time, and but looking back, they can say, like, yeah, I don't know that same as us. I don't know that we asked the questions. I don't know that we really knew what we were doing or were really intentional with the Lord, although we kind of pretended that we were. And then once we got into marriage, pretty quickly, it just felt like this is so hard. And they didn't have this big sin moment or moments of huge issue, but the Lord individually met them and was like, hey, here's your big issue for the woman, and hey, here's your big issue for the man. And they both just felt convicted by the Lord that, like, this isn't right. And they sought mentoring, and they sought the Lord in what does marriage look like? What should marriage look like? According to the Bible. And their marriage has been completely changed. Not that it was bad, but just amazing. Yeah. Flourishing and growth and seeking to serve each other, serve the Lord by serving each other. And so it doesn't have to be like, oh, well, you have to go through this awful time. It can, even if you bumble through your dating and engagement, the Lord can meet you and say, yeah, I really need to convict you about this.
Right.
And have fantastic growth from there.
Right. Because praise the Lord, his plan for marriage really has nothing to do with whether we're quote unquote compatible.
Right. Yes.
Like his plan for our marriage is way bigger than that.
Right. There's nothing in the Bible that talks about needing to be compatible in marriage.
Right. Which we weren't at the time. And that's part of that other episode I want to do, is to talk about, man, how much that has changed because you and I have changed each other.
Yeah.
And allowed the Lord to change our hearts with regards to what we think is important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get married. And over the course of the next 8 years, it's every
bump along the way,
right? I had a series of affairs, emotional affairs, and eventually a full physical sexual affair, and got caught every time in pretty short order, either because I was bad at it or what I believe is because God just loved me enough to never let me really get away with that. And it's certainly easy to ask the question, well, what kind of a idiot keeps doing that if you just keep getting caught? And of course, the answer to that is, well, one that was hurt and was responding to that hurt out of what I thought was going to fix the hurt. I mean, it's not like
that we don't give over to the Lord. We
right.
keep doing them
right.
because we're selfish.
Right. It's not like I fell into these affairs and was like, man, I think Andrea would be okay with this. Right? Like I knew what I was doing was wrong, but I was so hurt and frustrated and angry and all the emotions that I wanted something that would make me feel better.
Yeah, and those relationships, of course, were devastating to our marriage, but I had, for the whole entirety of our marriage, been very controlling and disrespectful and hateful at times, and those contributed in major ways to the massive struggles we had in our marriage.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's kind of, and we had good times too. It's not to say we didn't have good times. We did. We had some really enjoyable times during those years, but a lot of it just was clouded by sin. And I'm not saying like a fair sin. It's clouded by just self-seeking, a lot of sin, and a lot of just not choosing the Lord.
Yeah, and I would say, for me, so two things stand out to me, one for me and one for you. And this is, of course, from my standpoint. For me, I just had zero discipline to sacrifice myself for Andrea. Like I just had no, and it really was that. Like I have a number of just personality issues that can make it more difficult to sacrifice for Andrea. Like if she asks me right now to do something 5 minutes from now, I'll forget 10 seconds from now if I don't like be intentional about that. And early on in our marriage, not only was I just not caring about being forgetful, but also things like I just had zero pursuit of trying to serve her. Like there just was I felt like we got into marriage and it was like, okay, now you're doing your life and I'm doing my life, but we get to come home together, like, and hang out together. And that's great. And that is a cool part of marriage, but marriage is at its core about sacrifice for the other person. And I had no understanding of that, no desire to do that. So every time Andrea was like, "Hey, can you do this thing?" or "Hey, I need to do, can you help me with this?" It was just annoying because that was like her thing. So go do it and don't bother me about it. There was just no understanding of, hey, we're in this together now. And if I didn't want to help her do this thing or go with her to do this thing or be a part of her doing this thing, then I had no business marrying her. Because that's what marriage is. As a guy, when we marry a woman, you're tying yourself into everything that she has going on. And you're telling her you're going to sacrifice your own desires to be a part of what she has going on. And wives, it's the same thing. You're tying yourself in to being a part of what he's got going on. Yes, even the stuff that you're like, I hate golf. Golf is dumb. Well, but he loves it. And so when you get married, you know what you are now? Someone who at least half loves golf. And that's just how it is. And man, there are so many relationships where we get into them and it's like, well, I love A, B, and C about him. I hate, E, F, and G.
Well, if you're one, then you're hating a part of yourself.
Right. And,
yeah,
man, we just don't. So we look at it and we're like, well, we're not compatible at all. Well, yeah, you are, because you married that. Like I always love what Dr. Chapman says. He had a guy come to him and was like, man, I'm just having a really difficult time being attracted to my wife because she's blonde and I like brunettes. And he goes, no, you don't. And he goes, no, I like brunettes. And he goes, no, you don't. You married a blonde, so you're into blondes. Like that is kind of the mentality. This is why dating and engagement is so underrated in the Western culture, because this is the time to go like, hey, I can't live with somebody that's like this. Right? I can't. That's the time to figure out, hey, this woman I'm about to marry, she has told me multiple times she does not want to have kids. You're not going to change that. Don't go into the marriage assuming, well, she'll get over that. She's told you. Like, if there's something like that you just cannot get past, if you just cannot marry a guy that enjoys golf because you had a dad that abandoned you and your family for golf, don't marry a guy that's into golf.
Yep.
Like that, dating and engagement's the time for that, because once you're married, you're married. And I had no appreciation for that, getting into marriage. I had my stuff that I was into, and she was going to get on board with that, of course. But
hey, I love the Mariners
that
now.
Into right. But there's plenty of things I enjoy that you're like, that's stupid. And that's fine. I mean, obviously, there's a bit of this where it's like you don't have to actually enjoy everything your spouse enjoys.
I enjoy that you enjoy it.
But
I love that you enjoy it.
Right.
And I don't.
But that is not how it was when we first got
No.
married. And so there was this constant power struggle in our marriage. And on the other side, Andrea was very much one of those where she was like, hey, I like the things I like, and you can like the things you like. But if I don't enjoy the thing you're doing, I'm just not going to be a part of it. And so there were times where, we would want to go do something, and Andrew would be like, well, I don't enjoy doing that, so I'm just not going to go. Like, you can go. I'm just going to stay here. And that at the time in our early marriage was really hurtful to me, because it felt like unless I was doing something Andrea wanted to do, I couldn't.
Yeah.
And of course, then the temptation that opens up, Satan's not an idiot. So, when you are in those positions, or you put your spouse in those positions, oftentimes you open them up to temptation. It's not her fault. Don't get it twisted. I made the decisions that I made. But you can put your spouse in a position where Satan just conveniently inserts someone into their life that is into all those things that you're not into, and are more than happy to be a part of your spouse doing those things that you won't be a part of. Yeah. And it increases the temptation,
sure.
Which is a big part of what it means to be married, is how do we minister to our spouses in shielding them from temptations. It's the screw up Adam made in the garden.
So remind me, what were your three impressions of the first 10 years?
Yep. Get prepared. We kind of talked about
Be
that.
prepared.
Exactly. I kept thinking that as I was
Da-na-na-na-na.
thinking about
Yes.
this.
Be prepared.
Be prepared. Lay the foundation for realizing marriage is not about you.
Yeah, and you're probably going to need help with that. You know, so sorry, keep going. Lay the foundation. I'll come back to that. Lay the foundation.
Yeah, and then the third one was just humble yourself. Like,
Yeah,
be humble.
yeah, and I would add to laying the foundation, or a totally separate one, is get involved with people who are champions for marriage. That doesn't necessarily mean people who are doing like marriage mentoring or marriage counseling or marriage ministry or whatever, but people who agree and will fight for what God says marriage is.
Yeah.
And because if you're surrounding yourself with those kinds of people, they're going to be cheerleading your marriage in times where you're not.
Yeah.
And they're going to be helping you to pursue godliness in your marriage. And so like our friend group, they're not in marriage ministry. They're not doing marriage counseling or anything, but they're champions for marriage because they believe what God says in his word is true.
Yep.
And we're not letting each other bash spouses, bash somebody else's marriage. You know, we're on this journey together of lifting one another up, praying for one another, giving biblical advice.
Let me say something because it ties directly to what you said. I said humble yourself. That was not true. The second one was have hope.
Oh, yeah.
And that goes into what you're saying.
Yes.
So I just wanted to say that
That's
so you
great.
could build on that.
The third one, have hope. Yeah. And our friend group is sometimes giving us hope in not in our marriage like as a whole. I have a lot of hope in our marriage as a whole, but in like small areas where we're annoyed or whatever, giving hope, speaking things that are of the Lord because they know what the Lord has to say about marriage, and not just our close friend group, but like wider, you know, if we take a wider lens at people we hang around and we surround ourselves with. So it's so important to be in a church that believes in godly marriage, isn't going to suggest divorce to people who have people in that church that you can be confident are going to help you champion your marriage as you walk along in it. So I think that's so important.
Yeah.
And that's going to help
100%.
give you hope in times. You guys, let me be totally honest with you. We've been married 20 years and we've the last 10 years been on this amazing trajectory where the Lord has done so much in our lives. And I love this man desperately. But there are times where he does things that just really piss me off.
Sure.
And of course we all do, right? But then Satan uses those moments a lot to be like, you'd be better without him. I can't tell you how many times I think that in a year. And I know it's a lie. It's crazy. But if I walk down that road, what?
Yeah.
If I choose to continue in those thoughts and not give that to the Lord, then what? And so even as somebody who does a marriage podcast and knows what the Bible has to say, I think those thoughts.
Sure.
And so that's why, I mean, we have to know what the Bible says. We have to know when we're believing lies and be surrounded by people who are speaking truth into us.
Yeah, and I mean, this is where we can go back to Jesus' temptation in the wilderness and take some pointers away from that, because a couple of the temptations that Jesus faced, Satan quoted the Bible.
Yep.
I mean, so my point in saying that is there was some truth in the lies that Satan was trying to sell to Jesus, and Jesus saw through them. That's what you're describing. Because certainly, and I'm sure there's someone out there who's listening to this, and when you're tempted with those thoughts, there certainly are certain ways in your life that you would be better off without me, from the standpoint of like, there are things you could probably accomplish better if you were on your own. I mean, that's not a heresy to admit that. Look there's a reason why Jesus and Paul instruct people, hey, if you can live your life without being married, do it.
Right.
because you can commit yourself fully to
the Lord's work.
To the
and not
Lord's
be-
work.
Have split attention.
The point is, there just is aspects of our lives that would be easier if we weren't with the other person. The difference is, and what Andrea is saying, and she's right, is there's an obedience issue involved with that. There's a reality that regardless of whether she would be better off without me or not better off
I would
without
not
me,
be.
it's wrong.
Right, because
And-
I chose marriage.
Right.
So
That's
I'm
right.
Not, the Lord's plan for me is to stay married.
Right. Right. Yeah, and that's where, we need to land on as Christians, and that's where the hope piece comes in. Because when that temptation comes in, if you're at a place in your faith where you really struggle buying into but this is wrong, because Nathan and Andrea, you don't know how bad my marriage is. Like, you don't know how
Right.
mean my spouse is to me. You don't know how little he or she cares about me. And all these thoughts start going into the pot that results in giving up on a marriage. And the hope piece has to come in to say, whether I do or don't know or understand the specifics of your situation, I do understand what God says about the design for marriage. And while the human beings inserted a couple of reasons into the Bible for getting out of a marriage, Jesus in Matthew 19 says, from the beginning it was not so. Marriage was intended to be you and the man or woman, man if you're a woman, woman if you're a man, that you chose to marry forever, regardless of the circumstances. Now, certainly, there are people that are in a position where you're in danger from your spouse, which makes me so sad in those positions. And if you're in that position, you need to use every
safe.
asset at your disposal to get safe, right? Get the police involved, get family involved, get you and your kids, get out of that situation. Beyond that, and even in that, we have to trust God and His sovereignty in our situation to fix it as only God fixes it. And in our particular relationship, He used a couple we didn't even know that well. But He spoke to them and gave them a heart for our marriage. Andrea had reached out to her because Andrea, at the lowest point in our marriage, didn't know who to reach out to because we hadn't really surrounded ourselves with a community that spoke hope into our marriage. We really had no one. And so she reached out to a woman that she just knew had been a champion for marriage in the past.
We did our parents are great godly people and were fighting for our marriage, but I also knew I can't have my parents either of our parents walking us through this.
Sure.
So that is a plug for don't use your family when you're in desperate situations. It's not probably a great idea to use your family as your kind of counselors, mentors.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, and through this couple, we humbled ourselves and decided to recommit to our marriage. And so for about years 9 and 10, we were doing the really hard work of bringing things back together. And
it took 2 years.
We've certainly have talked about this on this channel before, but it's probably worth doing another just really practical episode about what that looked like, because it was a roller coaster ride of emotions, of double guessing whether we really wanted to be back together or we wanted that to look like. There was a lot of temptation to just go back into the old ways, and just sort of recommit to doing marriage as we were doing it the first 8 years. I mean, that's always the temptation because it's what and it's hard. Building a marriage according to God's design is hard work for both of you. And the hard part about coming through a situation where a spouse has broken trust like that is you want them to have to do the work because it's their fault. Obviously, from the other person's standpoint, they wouldn't be in that position if the other person weren't doing whatever it is that frustrated you about them, and so they should have to do the work. And, if you live in that, you end up in this place where nothing ever changes because you're waiting for the other person to do their part. And we spent some time in that, ugliness.
Yep.
But eventually, through a lot of work the Lord did in our hearts, through a lot of hard work ourselves, through
Hard
getting
work
right
with
with
our
the
mentors,
Lord,
for our mentors.
we got to a place where we really submitted our lives to what God's design was for marriage. And that happened about 10 years ago.
And yeah, like Nathan's saying, that was really hard because we're selfish people, still are selfish people. That meant a lot of sacrifice and a lot of forgiveness, and that was really difficult. But I can tell you, on this side of things, God's plan is so much better than our selfishness.
Yeah, that's right.
So much better. And so if you're struggling with submitting to the Lord, I can promise you it's worth it.
Yep.
Totally worth it.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I think that's the takeaway is, look, we've while we didn't have every single circumstance that bad way that a couple can treat each other early on in our marriage, we had most of them. And so if you're in a position where you're struggling in your marriage, take hope from our marriage. We were completely down and out. Now, 10 years later, I feel like I can't imagine, nor would I want to imagine, my life with anyone else. Our marriage is so fulfilling, and I love this woman so much, and we have so, beyond the fact that it brings me joy to know that our marriage is not perfect, but a reflection of God's design for marriage. Beyond that, I'm just really happy being married to Andrea and having the life that we have, even with all the crazy kids she keeps bringing into the family. I just wouldn't have it any other way, and I'm so grateful to the Lord that He walked us through that, and grateful to Andrea that she chose to walk through that in order to restore our marriage. So take some hope from us. Reach out if you need prayer, if you need advice. You're always welcome to comment on our videos or on our podcasts, or you can send us an email, marriagebydesignpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll, if nothing else, pray alongside you and hope in the Lord's work that He wants to do in your marriage. That is the first 10 years of the 20 years that we have been together. The next 10 years, which has been also difficult, but in a much different way. Not difficult necessarily in a marriage, from this standpoint, but difficult from we're in a totally different, we're raising kids, we're working hard to build careers. Andrea chose to leave her career to raise the kids. We're homeschooling, where it's more the busyness, but there's lessons in that we'd love to share with y'all about being intentional and fighting the grind as a couple. I think that would be the takeaways I have there. So looking forward to sharing that with y'all. Again, feel free to reach out if you need anything. Otherwise, we will see you again next week with the second part of this series about our 20 years together. Until then, remember, God is for your marriage.
Thanks so much for listening. We just wanted to say, if you have a comment, a question, something that you're struggling with, or need prayer, please reach out to us. You can get a hold of us by emailing marriagebydesignpodcast@gmail.com, or of course you can comment on any of our social media and we will get back to you. But if you have something private, feel free to email us. We're personally respond to you.
That's right. And we do respond to every comment that we receive, either through our website, through YouTube, through our social medias, which leads me to, feel free to pop over to our website, marriagebydesignpodcast.com. You can leave comments on any of our videos through that site. We would love to be able to connect with you, but please don't hesitate to reach out. Even if you just need prayer, you need someone to hear what you're going through, we're here for the Marriage by Design community, so feel free to reach out anytime. Until then, guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll talk to you next time.